Hello guys and welcome to the channel. My name is Corndog, and in this video we're going to take this dollar store mask and see if we can give it a new paint job and make it look a little bit creepier. As you can see, it's not bad for an $8 mask, but I have a specific idea in mind, so let's see if I can pull it off, and you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. So the first thing I wanted to do was get all of the extras off of the mask. Fortunately, it's a cheap mask and everything is held together with hot glue, so I had no real issues. First thing to go was the see-through material from the back of the mask, which was just a matter of finding a spot where I could push my finger in and the rest of the glue just slid off of the mask. After that was removing the material from the back of the eyes, and again, it's a simple glue job and they come off pretty easily. And lastly was the strap, and you guessed it, hot glue again, so with just a bit of effort they just pulled right apart and I could easily slide them out and off of the mask. And there we go. All I'm left with is just the mask ready for painting. So I'm just going to take this bad boy outside and give it a shot of primer. And here's the result. I just gave it a single coat of black primer spray paint and a downward spray of some gray primer on the top. I thought the gray would make a decent highlight area, but for the style I picked, it didn't really make much of a difference. But no harm, no foul, and we move on to the painting phase. So the idea for this mask is corpse paint related, obviously, because you read the title of the video and that's what it says. When I saw this mask in the store, the first thing I thought of were death metal singers screaming, growling, and making noises with their mouths that human beings shouldn't be able to make, so I figured I'd make something to resemble their face paint. The first thing was adding multiple layers of white acrylic paint on top of the black primer, because if you've ever worked with acrylic paint before, you know that one coat of white isn't going to be white. So I just grabbed a brush, added a layer of white, used a hairdryer to dry the paint, added another layer of white, and so on until I got the look I wanted. I didn't want full coverage of the mask because I wanted some of the black to show through the white to resemble fading. I wasn't too worried about the inside of the mouth or around the eyes that much because the eyes will have black paint on them and the mouth will be fixed later in the video. Angle change now as we move on to adding the black paint onto the face. The first thing I wanted to do was take a pencil and very lightly sketch on the design I wanted before I started painting so that I would have a guide and I wouldn't be freehanding it the whole time. But be very careful because if your paint isn't completely dry, you'll scratch it off with the pencil. Once everything was drawn out, I grabbed the fine-tipped brush for tracing the outline of the design and a wider, flatter brush to fill it in, splattered some black paint on my makeshift palette, and got to work. So while I was thinking of ideas of what to do with this design, I wanted it to be something that meant something to me as a metalhead. So I decided to go with something that would pay homage to one of the bands that first got me out of my pop music prepubescent days and moving in the direction of my rock and roll and eventually heavier music high school days. This band was one of my dad's favorite bands, so I heard their music a lot growing up. One of the originators of black and white face paint, the rockin' and rollin' all night, partying every day band themselves, Kiss. Now, with that in mind, I knew I could put that together with my corpse paint idea pretty well, and choosing which member to emulate was pretty easy to figure out. The member I chose for this mask was my dad's favorite member of the band, and no, it wasn't Paul or Gene. Everyone's favorite was Paul or Gene. My dad's favorite member was Carr. He was one of the drummers who replaced Peter Criss when he left the band. Tragically, he died in 1991 after an aneurysm and a brain hemorrhage. If you ever want to see what a great drummer the Foxman was, I'll link a video in the description you guys can see for yourself. The man used synthesizers to play a whole song by himself on the drums. That doesn't sound great for today's standards, but this was back in the 80s when synth was really starting to catch on in pop culture. But anyways, back to the video. While I was painting this, I wanted to stay true to the original design, but with this being corpse paint, it didn't have to be perfect. Being smeared and smudged makes it look grungier, and that's the look I'm going for. Once the outline was finished, I took the wider brush and started to fill it in and make it look a little more scuffed around the edges. Just like the white paint, I wasn't too worried about getting it perfect or having some of the white show through from underneath. It just adds to the character of the mask and makes it look worn and weathered. After finishing with the black paint and letting it dry, I grabbed some red paint that I mixed up for something else I was painting and started adding some red around the eyes and nose. It's kind of hard to see, but in Eric Carr's face paint, he has a small bit of brown on the bottom side of his nose, but I thought that adding some red for a nosebleed would fit the theme of the mask a bit better, so I went with that. And lastly, before we let this thing dry for a while, I wanted to add some blood splatters to the mask to give it something extra. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get it on camera, but I was smart enough to bring it into view so you can actually see what I did. And then I went for another splatter on the other side and... After checking the damages and finding a new red stain on my shirt, I carefully moved on and added a few splatters under the nose. I let the mask dry overnight, and in the morning I gave it a single coat of matte clear spray paint to seal that paint in. And here are the results. Not too bad for my first time repainting a mask, if I do say so myself. But there are a few things left that I want to do with this mask before I'm done with it. The main thing that I don't like are all of the marks on the mask from manufacturing and the lip around the edge, so I'm going to trim off some of the edge of the mask to get rid of those things. Nothing too difficult if you have scissors that are actually good, but I didn't have any, so these had to do. Once the edges were trimmed to my liking, it was on to the mouth area. The reason I didn't worry about painting too much of the mouth was because I knew I wanted to add a better mouth hole later, so I didn't bother touching it too much. What I did was I used an X-Acto knife to cut out the mouth so that it leaves just a small lip on the back side of the mask. After gluing on the eyes, I took the material that came with the mask and used my hot glue gun to glue it to the back of the mask so that it covered the whole mouth. When the glue was dry, I used my scissors to trim the excess fabric around the area. Now we just go back and add new slots for the straps to go in, throw those bad boys in, and seal them up with some hot glue, and this thing is good to go. And there you have it, folks. The Kiss Corpse Paint Mask. Hope you guys enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and if you want to see more content like this, I have more masks to paint and more ideas not involving masks, so make sure to hit subscribe and push the bell so you can see every video the moment it comes out. Thank you all for watching, and until the next video, I'm Corndog, and this has been Corndog Creates. Have a great day. Catch you all on the next one.